when we started working together, there'd never been a real discussion around, all right, well, we all want to grow this thing, but what's your exit strategy? And so, like, what does that look like for each of you as the directors within the business? And, as you have that open conversation and you go around the table, it became very apparent that, a couple of the directors were in it for the long haul. They wanted to go, it was a 15-year kind of plus horizon, but there are other couple of directors who had a shorter time horizon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Ignite podcast. My name is Josh Stone, founder of Ignite Coaching, where I help business owners of engineering consultancies build and grow businesses that they love, build businesses that they're proud of, and help them grow to that next level, whether it be to 1 million, to 3 million, to 5, to 10, or beyond. All right. So today, team, we are talking about planning for shareholder exits. And so obviously, this is applicable to any business owner, but really starting to think about, and this ties into a bit of a different topic or a bit of a broader conversation, which is the whole concept around shareholders coming into your business. And in another episode I've recorded, we talk a lot about like the different ways you can structure bringing in shareholders and that sort of thing. But like as a bit of a summary, like why would you bring shareholders into your business? And so say you've grown it from yourself, or maybe there's yourself and a couple of directors, and so maybe there's already shareholders within the business, but bringing on shareholders or that sort of next generation coming through the business is really, really smart if you're looking to grow quickly. And so what I mean by that is, you think about yourself and you think about how much effort, this business is your baby and how much effort you put into building the business. Well, just imagine if there wasn't just one of you, but there was 4 of you or 6 of you all building the business together. Because once someone goes from being an employee, and obviously shareholders are still employees, but going from an employee mindset to a business owner mindset is very, very different. And so, for yourself, you live and breathe the business, you go above and beyond, you chase that next client, you knock that project out of the park because you want that client to come back to you and give you more work. And so if you've got, a number of different shareholders in the business, all incentivized through dividends and, all incentivized through the growth of the business, well, then it's not just you building the business anymore. You've leveraged your time and you've leveraged those around you, because all of a sudden you've got a number or a handful of motivated, inspired people around you, all incentivized to build the business quickly. And so like that's kind of a broad summary in terms of why would you bring on shareholders into the business. And there's a number of different reasons why you would do that too. Like, I've spoken to plenty of single person or single individual businesses, so sole business owners who are looking to grow, and some of them join forces with another single business owner. And so instead of them going it alone, they've got 2 people within the business now, 2 directors, a 50-50 split, or whatever you sort of negotiate, or building the business together. So there's a number of different ways you can kind of skin that cat. What I want to really focus on today is the importance of planning for shareholder exits. And so this is one of those things that no one really thinks about. They're like, yeah, let's go, come on, come be a shareholder, let's build this thing together. But no one really thinks about the exit strategy. No one's really sort of planning for and thinking about, well, what happens when someone wants to retire, or what happens when life circumstances change and a shareholder needs to put their shares on the table. And so this is as equally as an important discussion as it is around getting your shareholders deed right, and the incoming shareholder discussions, and planning for shareholder exits needs to be written into your shareholders deeds too in terms of what happens. But again, this feeds into a broader discussion around we have to make the exit as easy as possible. There's a number of, there's so many ways you can kind of structure your shareholders deeds and how it kind of looks. But there's a bit of school of thought that I'm not a massive fan of, which is like, well, I want, if you're the business owner, I want the next generation of shareholders to be locked in. And, if they sell early or they want to exit the business, well, their shares, I want the shareholders deed to say that they're only going to be worth 10% of the shares, of the share value. And so they might buy in at 100 grand and grow their share value to 200 grand. But if they leave, their shareholders, their shares are only worth 10% of that, so they only get 20 grand, and I want to incentivize them or lock them into the business. And so that's a whole nother discussion too, but like that completely deters anyone. Like, why would anyone sign up to that? No one knows. No one's got a crystal ball. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know where life's going to take them. And so we want to make the buying and selling of shares within our business as easy and as attractive as possible to attract really good talent, to attract good people coming through the business, to, make sure that people are incentivized to not only perform, but, when it's time for them to say goodbye for whatever reason, that it's an easy process. And so what I want to cover today is the exit part of the process, and in terms of like, we need to plan for it. We need to think about it. It needs to be as easy as possible, and provisions need to be made for it. And so I'll give you an example. I'm working with a business that I'm at the moment, 4 directors. They're differing age groups. They've got amazing growth potential, and they've got amazing growth ambitions in terms of where they want to take the business. But when we started working together, there'd never been a real discussion around, all right, well, we all want to grow this thing, but what's your exit strategy? And so, like, what does that look like for each of you as the directors within the business? And, as you have that open conversation and you go around the table, it became very apparent that, a couple of the directors were in it for the long haul. They wanted to go, it was a 15-year kind of plus horizon, but there are a couple of directors who had a shorter time horizon, and through age and through retirement, as well as like, others just didn't want to do it in terms of building the business for that longer period of time. And so this was a really important conversation to be having at a director level, because it had never been had and no one really kind of knew each person's view on it. But like I said, a couple of them were like, yep, 15 years plus, I'm going to stay forever and we're going to grow this thing. But another couple of them were like, well, I kind of, maybe in 5 to 7 years time, I kind of want to be selling out. I kind of want to go and do other things. And one, you've got to have these conversations and be able to have these conversations at a director level, those sort of open discussions. But two, like, now that we know that information, we now need to make provision for that. And these are not small sums of money too. Like, as we started to look at the projection of the business in terms of, where they are now, roughly 5 mil progression through to where they want to be, one of the directors who wants to sort of start to sell out or sell down at that 5 to 7 year mark, like, we're talking millions of dollars here. And had that discussion not been had, and had that not been thought about, the business could be in a real predicament in terms of like, well, if a shareholder turns around and goes, all right, I'm kind of out, or I want to, it's time for me to retire, or all that sort of stuff. If the business doesn't have that money, or you haven't thought about, teeing up next generation shareholders to start to take over that person's shares and that sort of thing, it can become a really, really awful process. We want things to be not a surprise if we can help it. And obviously there's extenuating circumstances where, people get sick, or there's, maybe they're potentially a bad leaver from a shareholder's point of view, all these things that we can't really foresee. Obviously, the shareholders deed needs to go into provisions for that, and we should have provisions for bad leavers too, in terms of that. Definitely, if they've done some detriment to the business, that should definitely be a reduction in their shareholder value. But we want to make sure, and so those extenuating circumstances, obviously we can plan for them to a certain extent, but what we're talking about today is making sure that you've had discussions with the shareholders. It needs to be easy, it needs to be thought about, and that you've made a plan in place. We have a plan in place. So this business that I'm talking about, now that we've kind of mapped out the revenue structure, the revenue stream, the valuation of the business and the potential over the next 10 or 15 years, pulled that down to shareholder valuations in terms of, well, if someone wants to sell out in 7 years time or 5 years time, what does that look like? What's that value? They can now plan for that. They now know that in 5 years time, they need to find that money, and they need to start putting that money away from the business, out of the profit, to allow for paying that shareholder out. Or they need to start discussions now with next generation shareholders to go, hey, we really see value in you coming through the business. let's start the discussion about you becoming next generation shareholder, because one of our major shareholders wants to sell down in 5 years' time, and we'd like to have you lined up to take, a percentage of their shares. And so if you can plan for it, if you can have those discussions, if you can be aware as much as possible about exiting shareholders, then it goes so much more smoothly, as opposed to, someone puts their shares on the table and it's like, I'm really sorry, we do not have that money. You're either going to have to stick around. Worst case scenario, which I've seen so many times, is people resign, they're shareholders, they resign for whatever reason, or they leave the business because they're a bad leaver. They go work for someone else, but they are still a shareholder in your business. And that is a terrible situation to be in, where you've got people working for competitors, or they've left the industry, or they've gone somewhere else, and they are still a shareholder in your business because you didn't think about it, or you didn't have the funds to pay them out. So we need to plan for this stuff, team. We need to think about, as much as it is, the happy, warm stuff when we're bringing in shareholders, we need to think about exits too. We need to be planning for them, have provisions in place, have those discussions with next generation shareholders about taking over some of the exiting shareholders shares. The other thing too is like setting up a fund or a trust or something like that, where you put an X percentage of profits that sits there. Maybe it's in a high interest account, or maybe it's invested in something else, but you can access that like it's a highly liquid investment that you can pull that money out tomorrow if you need to. So I know plenty of engineering consultancies that do that. They have an account set up, like a trust or something like that, that does invest in other things, but the money's sitting there earning interest, or the investment's earning money anyway. But that money, when it comes time, when a shareholder puts their money on the table, that money gets pulled back into the business and pays the shareholder out. And so having things like that and thinking about the exit will make the whole process so much less painful. It will make your business way more attractive. Like, no one likes to think about the fact that shareholders are going to put their shares on the table at some point, but it is inevitable. And I guarantee you at some point too, as the business owner, will want to get paid for your shares at some point too. So having a provision in place, thinking about it, mapping it out, get some financials, talk about it around the board table, all those sorts of things will mean that it's such an easier process than some of the companies that I've seen in the past. So team, fundamentally, it can't be a surprise if you can help it. So plan for exits now, get it right, have provisions in place, and reap the benefits of having some amazing shareholders around the table, all invest in the growth of the business. If you'd like some help with this sort of stuff, team, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to have a chat about how I could help you build your business even further, even faster, or simplify some of the systems and processes. Feel free to send me an email, give me a call on the mobile. Would love to have a chat. That's it for me today. Talk to you soon.